there are no guarantees in this business, and it is really hard, and it's something you just have to know that you want and you have to work for it. So just start now.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Corbin-Westphal, a Broadway music director, voice coach, and tenured professor in the musical theater department at the University of Michigan.
And I'm Chelsea Wilson, a performer turned voice teacher to Broadway stars and vocal coach on Broadway productions like The Phantom of the Opera, School of Rock, and more.
Here on the Broadway Vocal Coach podcast, you can expect real talk about the business, practical advice, and constant encouragement.
We believe there's space for every artist in this industry. All you need is the right support. So consider us your two-woman hype team. Welcome to the Broadway Vocal Coach podcast, where we help musical theater performers get unstuck and take the next step in their careers. Cynthia, I feel like we're kind of bookending our season with this interview today. A little while back, we had Kristin Chenoweth on the podcast, the original Glinda in Wicked. Mm-hmm. And today we have the current and 20th anniversary Glinda, McKenzie Kurtz, joining us for an interview. And I can't wait to get into it.
I know. I'm so excited.
McKenzie, I think, is just so talented and so charismatic. And I just think she's lovely. I'm meeting her for the first time today when we do our interview, and I just can't wait to talk to her. And I have a special connection with her that she doesn't know about. So I'm gonna share that with her when we chat.
I love that. Well, I can tell everybody that she is as lovely a human being as you could possibly hope for her to be. You know how when you have those people that you see on stage and you kind of idolize them a little bit and you think they're so amazing, and then she is the person you hope she will be in real life as well. She is a delight. She is kind and generous and lovely. And I'm so excited for all y'all to spend the next few minutes with her, listening to her talk about all the things.
If you don't know McKenzie Kurtz, let me just share a little bit about her. McKenzie is currently starring as Glinda in Broadway's Wicked. She made her Broadway debut as Princess Anna in Frozen in February of 2020. Most recently, and prior to her current role in Wicked, she appeared in NBC's Annie Live as the star to be and as Heather in Marvel's new television series She-Hulk on Disney+. In the fall of 2021, she performed in the out-of-town tryout of Trading Places, directed by Kenny Leon. She graduated from the University of Michigan School of Musical Theater and Dance with a BFA in Musical Theater in 2019. Prior roles include Ariel in Footloose at the Muni. She's worked at Williamstown Theater Festival in a 29-hour reading. And you can catch McKenzie as Glinda at the Gershwin Theater through the end of February 2024. And we will be asking her a little bit about what's next today when we chat with her. Let's dive into the interview. McKenzie, we are so happy to have you with us today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored. This is very exciting.
Our pleasure. Listen, McKenzie, we're meeting for the first time, but I want you to know that we have something very special in common. And that is that my first ever voice teacher in Atlanta, Georgia was Carrie Hughes, who I understand was your voice teacher all through high school. Is that correct?
Stop. I didn't know that.
Yes.
She is the best.
I know.
Love Carrie Hughes. Shout out Carrie Hughes. Taught me how to sing. Amazing, amazing teacher and woman.
Yes, same. I started with Carrie when I was 12. So I grew up not too far from you, north of Atlanta. And I moved away from Georgia when I was 15. But she hooked me up with a great voice teacher where I moved. But Carrie and I are still in touch. I texted her last night and was like, guess who's on the podcast tomorrow? Anyway, so she says hello.
Oh, I love her so much. She came to see the show recently, and it was like the best thing ever.
Oh, I love that. So that brings me to my question is, tell us how you got started as a singer, and like, at what point in your young life did you realize, oh, I'm kind of good at this whole singing thing. Maybe I want to do this. Like, what were your clues as you went along your way?
It took a second, I think. I wasn't, I think a naturally gifted songbird, I will say. But I think I really started to get interested. I started taking piano lessons, I think, when I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. Just, my mom wanting me to have an extra, after school activity. And pretty soon I was like, I think I would really like to try voice lessons as well, because my piano teacher also taught voice lessons. So I want to say I started taking voice lessons around like 7 or 8 years old. And of course, I mean, my first ever performance in front of people was Hilary Duff's So Yesterday on a cruise ship talent show.
Yes.
And I
Strong start.
really,
Yes.
exactly. And the little girl who actually won the talent show sang the Rainbow Connection, and she was amazing. And I went up to her after and I'm like, are you a singer? What do you do? And she's like, I am a musical theater performer. And I'm like, okay, whatever that is, I need to get into that because I want to be able to win the next cruise ship talent show that I'm a part of. So that's kind of how that all started. And yeah, I started taking lessons around 7 or 8 and then just continued on doing that. And here we are now. Yeah.
Wow.
So at what
Amazing.
age did you know that this is what I want to do for my career for the rest of my life?
It was pretty early on. My first show I ever did, I was about 8 years old, and I got hooked right away and didn't do anything else after. I was like, this is what I want to do. And luckily ended up going to a high school, a public high school with a great theater program. And so that just really solidified it for me that it was what I wanted to pursue. And I wanted to go to college to study musical theater and hopefully someday, make it my job.
What was that process like for you? I'm just curious. When I went through the college musical theater audition process, I was pretty clueless. This was like easily a decade before you went through it. So there was like less information on the internet about it. But did you have a lot of guidance? Did you feel confident going into that process? What was that like for you?
Totally. And this is something I talk with, I work with some students now, and the college audition process is always just something that is so crazy to this day. Luckily, I feel like now there is more information about it. But when I was going through it, shout out to my mom. My mom was so on it and really helped me do a lot of research, figure out what programs I really was interested in and what I wanted to apply to. In high school, I went to the Jimmy Awards and won the Carnegie Mellon pre-college program scholarship. So I got to go to Carnegie Mellon for 6 weeks after my junior year and kind of get a taste of that program, and also got a lot of really helpful college audition prep in that time, right before, senior year and all those auditions started happening. So I felt like I was pretty prepared. I look back now at I think about some of the self-tapes I did and I'm like, oh my God, what were you doing? What was that? But I think I want to say I applied for maybe 15 different schools. And then some of my, schools that I was really interested in and passionate about were the ones that I went to travel to go on campus to audition. So Michigan was one of those schools that I went to go audition on campus for. And yeah, it was, yeses and nos, and luckily ended up at the University of Michigan, which I think I was, supposed to be there. And that's what I tell all my students, you're going to end up where you end up. Everyone's journey is different, whether it happens now, whether you take a gap year, all that stuff. So yeah.
I auditioned on campus at Michigan as well. And despite it being one of the coldest days on record in a 10-year period, I was like, this is where I'm meant to be. I'll put up with the cold. And indeed, I did for the next 4 years. So I'm glad to hear we have that in common.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like that. And getting used to that from living in Atlanta, Georgia, your whole life.
It's little
shocking.
different. Yeah, I will say.
I feel like it's good training, though, for when you move to New York and you're not traveling from car door to front door of building you just parked in front of, and you are actually walking outside for long distances of time. I feel like it's good training.
Yeah, that's true.
Get a little of that weather training in you. How was it choosing a school? I know you ended up at Michigan, obviously, but did you have options that you were choosing between? And was that a difficult process to know where you really felt like you belonged?
I will say, and I don't think I've ever spoken about this in detail, but I really did fall in love with Carnegie Mellon at my time there. And I loved Pittsburgh. I loved the campus and just had a great 6 weeks there. I ended up getting waitlisted there, which, in my 18-year-old brain, I'm like, oh my God, I really, really wanted this. And I'm going to share this now because I feel like this, this happens to a lot of people. And it's you can be so sad about this, but then ultimately going to Michigan, and trust me, I was still very, very excited to know that I got into Michigan, but it was just something I had, I didn't know as much about, and I hadn't had that great experience. So yeah, I think I was waitlisted at Carnegie. I'd gotten into a couple other programs that I was definitely excited about and interested in, but going and auditioning on campus at Michigan. And I had some friends there as well who were a year above me and then a couple years above me as well, like from Atlanta, that I had grown up doing theater with, that had amazing things to say. So I felt pretty secure and comfortable with my decision. And yeah, it was the right one.
Thank you for sharing, though, about the other school. I mean, I think it's so helpful for people to know. They look at someone like you who is so incredibly successful, and to hear that you were waitlisted at a school that you had spent 6 weeks training with. You know, I can imagine that felt at the time like a massive disappointment, and maybe even like a real hit to the ego of like I won this competition and that got me this 6-week training, and then I couldn't get into the school, and what's going on? And did that mess with your head at all? I'm assuming that it did at that time. Yes.
Oh, it definitely did. I mean, it was thinking back and being like, oh my gosh, like, what did I do during those 6 weeks? Like, am I not good enough? Am I, it's that the doubt creeps in, and it's not a fun feeling. Rejection is just not a fun feeling. And there's a lot of it in this business. And but ultimately, it makes you stronger. Every no you hear, it's like just that much more drive to keep going and get that next thing. So yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I hope that kind of helps normalize because there will be rejection. And I wish we had a better word than rejection. What's a better word than rejection, y'all?
Well, I just always like to say it wasn't meant for you.
Yeah. There will always be places that are not meant for you.
Yeah. and jobs. Okay. And I'm like, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. I look back like some of the jobs that I auditioned for that I'm like, I want this so bad. And then it doesn't end up happening later on. There's like some weird reason. And I'm like, oh, well, I wasn't meant to be doing that because now I can do this. And now, there's always a silver lining.
Yeah. And I think looking at it that way is always the positive choice. Let's jump to the present day for a moment. Wicked recently celebrated 20 years on Broadway. And you had the distinct honor of being the current Glinda on Broadway during all of the festivities. What was special about that experience?
And we just interviewed Kristin Chenoweth a few weeks ago. So this is so fun. We're getting the original and we're getting the 20th anniversary Glinda.
There were too many special things. I can't even begin to list them all. This show has been my favorite since seeing it at 9 years old. And this part in particular, I've always said I wanted to play Glinda. I've been obsessed with it since seeing it. So this was just like such a dream come true to come in and play the 20th anniversary Glinda and get to experience this insane time. And, doing all these fun press things with previous Elphabas and Glindas and meeting some of the women who I just have looked up to my entire life and are so inspirational. It was, I can't even really describe it, just how cool it was. And the performance itself, that night itself was like insane. I didn't sleep for like 2 nights after that, just from the adrenaline of like getting through those 24 hours and having Kristin and Idina come and being able to perform this for them and having a lot of the original Broadway cast there was so cool. So cool.
I imagine, though, it was challenging and it had its own special challenges. Like, did you feel a different level of stress or pressure surrounding that time and all the special guests and all the press events? Like, what was it like?
Well, and the other thing I think about is the fatigue. Like, when you're already doing an 8-show week and now you're piling on a lot of special events and there's all the stress and adrenaline of just the festivities. Yes. How did you navigate all of that?
Absolutely. Yeah. The month of October, I don't even know how. Alyssa Fox, who is my Elphaba and who is amazing, incredible, love her to death. She and I would just look at each other sometimes and have these moments of like checking in, being like, are you good? I'm good. Okay, we can do this. So having that teammate with me for every one of those events and all of those shows was super important. And like, I am bonded to that girl for life. Like, I have never experienced.
You've been through something together.
Oh, yeah. For real. But it was amazing. And it was hard. It was just a month of like, I was just terrified I was going to get sick. And thank God I did not. And just resting whenever I could. And honestly, at times having to know I have to call out of this show tonight. Like if, I need to be ready to go for these anniversary performances and I want to be at my best. And yeah, all the press we did was so fun. And just some of the content that was created through that is something that I will cherish forever. Getting to do the Wicked Tiny Desk and getting to do the Popular Music video with some of the previous Glindas, and, you know, working with Stephen Schwartz and doing interviews with him, like Good Morning America. It was amazing. And like, I wouldn't have traded it for the world, but yeah, it was definitely a crazy time. And at the end of it, we just looked at each other. We were like, we did it. After act one of the anniversary performance, she came back after singing Fine Gravity, and we were in the hallway of our dressing rooms and we just hugged each other and cried. We weren't even through the whole show yet, but it was just one of those moments of like, oh my God, we did it. It's going great. People are loving it. Like, it just turned out better than we could have ever imagined. So
that's amazing. Okay, I have a follow-up question to the events. This is as superficial as it gets, but I don't care. Your outfits were amazing. I would like to know who chose the outfits. Were you coordinating? Because you and Elphaba were looking really amazing together. Did you have a stylist?
All about it.
Tell us everything.
Thank you so much. I think Alyssa wouldn't mind me saying this, but I'm going to credit myself with some of our wardrobe choices.
Done.
Amazing.
We are very... I think I'm very similar to Glinda in that I love a good fit and I love some sparkle and dressing fabulously. So yeah, we definitely had a lot of events where they would say, okay, like, we need you guys in the pink and the green. I've never owned more pink in my entire life now. That, like, it's insane. But yeah, so I think one video in particular we did with Broadway.com where we're wearing these like almost like plaid pink and green dresses. So the green dress was mine and then the pink, and it was one of the last events we did. And I was like, I have these and we have to use them, because I'm like, how can we not? So yeah, we coordinated on everything, of course. Like, sometimes we'd be up the night before FaceTime and be like, okay, you're going to wear this. I'm going to wear this. Great. It's going to look good. So yeah, thank you.
That's true friendship right there, is like, what are you wearing? I'm wearing this. We're wearing this. Okay, great. We're going to show up coordinated. We're ready to go.
I was like, there has to be a stylist involved. It's so good. The outfits are so good.
Yeah, Alyssa hired a stylist for the 20th anniversary, and then I was like, I think I know what I want right away. So I was like, I think I'm good. But yeah.
Amazing. I love that.
That brings me to another question I had, which is that your two Broadway leading roles have been Glinda and Anna in Frozen, who are both two powerhouse princess types. And I'm curious, you said, that you relate to Glinda in like, you love a sparkly moment. What else is it that you relate to about these roles? And maybe, is there anything that feels like, maybe you are playing against type in some way? Or is this kind of where you thought these were dream roles of yours all along? This is the kind of role I want to play. Tell me a little bit about that with these iconic princess characters.
I think I knew pretty early on what kind of roles, I would like to pursue. And I think that are in my wheelhouse. And I think these are two of them that I definitely in college, I worked on these songs, Frozen and Wicked alike, and was like, I think I can really do this. And so just taking that time to prep for those, even in high school and in college. And yeah, Anna, I think the easiest thing for me to relate to was, I think, the sisterhood. And also with Glinda and Elphaba, like there's this, at the core of each show is this bond and this friendship and this sisterhood between these two characters. And I personally have a younger sister who's my best friend in the entire world. And we have been since we were children. And so that's something that I feel like I can really tap into as me, McKenzie. And Anna, I booked it when I was 22 years old. And so she kind of has this innocence and freshness. And I think me arriving to New York and just being so excited, and like Anna's whole opening sequence of the gates are opening, finally it's happening. Like, I think I really could lean into like my own personal journey of what was going on in my life when I was playing that role. And with Glinda, I joke, but I've been performing Glinda in my bedroom since I was like 9. So I was just excited to bring, I was excited to, I've been coming up with choices and bits for years. And I'm like, just to be able to get to do that now on the Gershwin stage is wild and so cool. And I like too that we can see, a lot of times I think Glinda is kind of written off as like, oh, she's just the funny one with the sparkly dresses. And I'm like, no, she goes on this insane journey along with Elphaba, and she grows. And at the end, ultimately they're both changed for good. So being able to play out that journey too every night, which I feel like I also have gone on in my own personal life, is something I can also relate to.
I totally agree. I recently saw Wicked on tour. It had been a long time since I'd seen the show. I'd seen it on Broadway. And so recently seeing it on tour, I was just moved all over again by their friendship, by the music. I mean, the whole thing. It's everyone's favorite for a reason. It really is. I'm curious though, especially listening to that score again through like voice teacher ears, I feel like there's probably misconceptions about how challenging it is to sing the role of Glinda. I think Elphaba kind of gets like, oh, Elphaba is so difficult. And of course it is. It's a really challenging vocal role, but Glinda is asked to do so much vocally. Like you're the high soprano line and then you're belting out popular, and then you're the high soprano line and you're belting out something else, So like, what's that like? What do you feel like might be some of the misconceptions that people have about the singing role, and what's been your journey with that?
Definitely. That's a great question. I love this role, and I love that it gives me the opportunity to really we start out in this legit soprano, crazy up in the rafters, and we also end there, but interspersed is some of these like mixier, even at times chestier songs, and like doing the lower harmonies and for good, and having almost like a country kind of twang. Like I feel like there are so many different colors, and like I think Glinda really expresses where she's at in her life and with her emotions with the sound of her voice. So that's something that's been really fun to kind of like play with. I mean, I've heard Kristin Chenoweth talk about it in other interviews when she is like her presentational self, she's in that soprano-y legit place. And then when she's like at her core feral self, it's, that mixy, more like nasally quality that she has going on. So it's really cool. But it's also, a challenge, because something I've learned doing this show, it's like, if you have any sort of sickness or fatigue, it will affect different parts of the voice. And it's like, sometimes I'm like, oh, the legit soprano stuff is what's coming easiest to me. But now singing like some of the speakier stuff in like Thank Goodness is a struggle, or singing some of the stuff in Loathing is a struggle, or What Is This Feeling? So that's been definitely a journey of kind of navigating that, doing it 8 shows a week, and being able to have every part of my voice be good to go for every show,
because
and strong.
It's needed. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
I've got a lot of daily maintenance questions. Okay. I would love to hear the daily maintenance for what you're talking about, your 8-show week of singing. But also, I mean, even thinking about things like 100 girls wanting your autograph after a show when maybe you just want to go home to bed, or, the amount of time it takes getting into hair and makeup and the heavy costumes that you wear. I have picked up some of those costumes. They are heavy. So how are you navigating this 8-show week vocally, but also physically, mentally, emotionally? What does that look like for you in an 8-show week?
Yes, great question. I'm like 10 months in, and I'm like, I'm still figuring it out. No, but honestly, I have my routine, I have my plan, and sleep is a big thing for me personally. If I have to, like yesterday after a 2-show day, like I slept 10 hours last night, and I'm like, I just need the sleep. I need it. That's just a me thing. Some people I know are like, okay, I can do like 6 hours and I'm great. I'm like, no, I have to sleep. Hydrating, constantly drinking water all the time, and just resting when I can, and knowing when I can, like, if I am feeling tired at the end of the week, more tired than usual, then like, okay, maybe I can't go see friends this evening. And like, you have to be a bit of a robot and a bit of a nun, and go home and like know and set boundaries for yourself. And with the stage door, it's like some nights I'm like, I can't do it tonight. And it sucks sometimes, but it's like, that is what it is. I want to be able to do to tomorrow and the next day. And so and I've become so in tune with my body doing this. And it's funny, I was just on vacation last week, And I came back and like sang through the first show on Monday. And I was like, it's so weird going into it after a week off because I'm like, I almost don't know where I'm at. So I'm like, how is this going to come out? But when you're doing this every single day, you really get a sense and can gauge of fatigue or like feeling where you're at on that type of scale. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And rest and, just trying to stay healthy is the most important thing, and knowing yourself and knowing your body.
Do you have a pre-show warm-up or ritual? Like, how early do you like to get to the theater? What does that look like?
I get to the theater about an hour early every day. So shows at 7:10, I'll get there around like 6. And I do my makeup myself. It takes more like 20 minutes. And then I'll get dressed, and then I will do a Chelsea Packard warm-up special.
Nice.
That I have used for years and years and years. That is my tried and true. Yeah, that's just like in my voice memos on my phone, and I do it before every single show. And I'll, even 2 show days, like I'll do it again, maybe just like an edited version, depending on how I'm feeling in between. But yeah, I will do a warm up for every show, and then a little body warm up. Like I'll just like stretch it out and do the roll downs and do all the things because those costumes are very heavy. And then the stage itself is raked, which is also really hard on the body. And you don't even realize how much it's affecting you until you get home at night and you're like, why is everything hurt? And it can affect your voice as well. So yeah, just doing all those things to try to stay healthy.
I love hearing that.
So tell us what's coming up next for you. I know you might not be able to say exactly what's coming up next for you, but your time with Wicked is drawing to a close. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes. Unfortunately, my time with Wicked is drawing to a close. My last performance will be on March 3rd.
Ooh, how's that feeling?
It's bittersweet. I really think like getting to do this and it being the 20th anniversary year was just the biggest blessing I could ever ask for. And I think I've had my time. By March 3rd, it will be a little over a year. And so I think I really just had my time, and I feel content with that. But of course, I'm so sad to go because it's just, I love going to work every day, and it's been my dream role forever. So I will be sad, but also I'm really just happy with how it happened and how it went. And yeah, coming up, I will be involved in a new project that will be kind of overlapping rehearsals with my final performances. So that'll be a whole other challenge.
Amazing. So you'll be in rehearsal from 10 to 6, and then you will run over to your show to start your 6 o'clock pre-warm-up ritual for a 7 o'clock performance.
I wish you the very best.
Wow.
Correct. Yes.
I still remember some actors who, back when I was living in New York and working Broadway shows, the people who were doing it, because it doesn't happen to many people, but to the folks who have that overlap and they're doing there's something kind of amazing. Like you are the rock star of Broadway during that overlap time. And just by virtue of like, whatever you're singing during rehearsal is probably in a different style than what you're singing in your show at night, and trying to be memorizing lines of a new show while you are performing the other show. Like it is a lot. And we always just thought people doing that were like the most amazing person. So, you had this 20th anniversary thing, and now to be one of these Broadway people with an overlap, I think is really cool.
Thanks,
amazing.
Guys. Yeah, I'm very excited.
Just remember that when you're exhausted and you're like, wait, why am I doing this? And then you can be like, that's right, because I'm the rock star of Broadway right now. And do it while you're young.
I love you.
Do it while you're young and you have lots of energy.
With that, you've said there's all these highs that come with like starring in a Broadway show, and there's sacrifice of like, I go home and I sleep and I rest. What advice would you give to young people who want to do this, see the glimmery, shimmery highlights of what it's like to perform on Broadway? What advice would you give to them? And maybe how might you suggest that young people, young artists, even people coming out of college prepare for a potential career in this industry?
First off, I'll say, I mean, it's never too early to start prepping. I talk to people, I tell students all the time, it's like, learn as much as you can about the industry and about the history of it all, and start prepping your book, start getting together your audition materials, learn what kind of, parts you like to do, where you see yourself fitting into this industry, and take as many classes as you can, whether it be voice, acting, dance, speech. Like, I just can't, stress enough. Just, you want to be as well-rounded of a performer as you can be. So start now, start taking those classes. And I think now too, there's so many resources available to us online. If there's not a vocal teacher in your area, there are plenty of people who do Zoom lessons. And that's something I think that is so worth looking into, and really just starting to build up your, specifically talking about voice, your vocal technique, and expanding your range and doing all of those things. Yeah. And just know that it is tough. It is really tough. And it's not something to be sugar-coated. And I mean, my parents were the parents that always, said to me, like, are you sure this is what you really want to do? And I was like, yes, I do. And now I even look back and I'm like, I wish that I had also a backup plan. And I think there's no shame in that at all. And it's something that I tell students now. I think it's just smart, because Brent Wagner always says there are no guarantees in this business, and it is really hard. And it's something you just have to know that you want, and you have to work for it. So just start now, just like taking all those classes and building yourself up to be a performer. Yeah.
I think the resilience can start at a young age too, is just knowing, like, sometimes in high school, a lot of people are like the big fish in their small pond, but putting yourself into experiences or opportunities where maybe you're the little fish in a bigger pond, even from that younger age, like auditioning for something outside of your immediate community where you're an unknown entity, and just allowing yourself to have experiences that push you and challenge you and help you grow. That is what you're going to be faced with in this industry once you enter the professional realm. And so even kind of starting to develop that resilience and that ability to work in different environments from a young age, that I think is valuable as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I also like to say, like, say yes to a lot of stuff. Like, if you have a performance opportunity in your high school, like, audition for the senior directed plays, do the student run shows, and write and try everything you can, and like really find where you thrive and what you're good at, and then just go for it and keep saying yes. That's another thing I like to tell people too.
That's good
I
advice.
love that. I agree. That's one that I love. Just keep saying yes. Even if you feel like you don't know what you're doing, say yes and then figure it out on the fly.
That's how you learn. That's how you learn.
Yep. I totally agree.
Thank you guys so much. This was so fun. Thank you. Seriously.
We so appreciate having you on, McKenzie, and we'll be humming Wicked for the rest of the day.
I'm so glad to hear it.
We can't wait to see what the next project is.
Yes.
Maybe we'll
so
know
excited
by
for
the
you.
time this podcast comes out. Maybe we will all know what it
Yes.
is.
I feel like you might. I feel like you might. Yeah.
We'll do a little addendum after this interview to update everybody if the news is out.
Perfect.
Amazing.
Perfect. Thank you, McKenzie.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for your
both
time.
so much. Thank you both so much. This was awesome. So good to see you both.
We find ourselves now after the interview, Cynthia, and indeed, by the time this is getting published and has found its way into your earbuds or your car or wherever you may be listening, it has been announced what McKenzie's doing next, so we are able to share it with all of you. Cynthia, what is she doing?
Oh, I'm so excited. She is doing the new Huey Lewis musical called The Heart of Rock and Roll, originating a role. So we're talking cast album, all the fun things. I mean, that really is like the dream, I think, of so many actors, is to get to originate a role, be the first one to really realize that role. So I'm so excited for her to do this project. And just to know that she's going back and forth and doing double duty and rehearsing during the day and doing Wicked at night is pretty awesome.
I can't wait to hear this different side of her vocally, to be doing the Huey Lewis musical, which I'm going to assume is Huey Lewis music, like pop rock music from the 80s and 90s. Yeah. Like, I can't wait to hear her on that. And I think what she said in our time together about how Glinda is kind of all over the map, and she does get to lean into that like mixy belty side of her voice. I am excited to see how that comes into play in this new show. So everyone catch McKenzie Kurtz in the new musical, The Heart of Rock and Roll. You can see her on Broadway in her next gig, and we're just happy to be able to share it now that the news is out. If you enjoyed today's interview with McKenzie, please consider sharing this episode with a friend. You can take a screenshot wherever you're listening and tag us on Instagram at BWay Vocal Coach, and consider leaving us a review. It helps our show find more people who love musical theater. And if you're ready to take your next step as a musical theater performer but aren't entirely sure what that should be, then take our quiz. We'll strategize with you to outline a roadmap to your unique goals. Plus, from there, you can book a free consult with us. Visit bwayvocalcoach.com/take the quiz. We can't wait to hear your story and help you take the next step in your career.